Hey everyone, it's Mike and Dan here with our beer draft, and this week we've got one of my favorite beers, Troegs Troegenator, a Doppelbock. And Troegs was the first brewery that I ever visited, so I think it holds a special place in my heart. Plus, I'm a big fan of their beers. They do a lot of IPAs, and this beer, very heavy, 8.2%. I mean,
It's pretty strong.
that's going to be a strong one, so that's why we're splitting this pint, because I think it's a lot. So why don't you go ahead and crack it open?
All right, let's see. Troegenator. It's a Doppelbock beer.
Yeah, they call it a Doublebock, Doppelbock kind of beer. It's a Belgian, and we're pouring them into Pilsner glasses. Now, Troegs website actually recommends a lager glass. We don't have those, so we're just going to use our Pilsner glasses here. I think that'll be fine. And Troegs was founded in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. That was the brewery I went to way back in 2007, I believe. And then they recently moved to Hershey, Pennsylvania because they needed a bigger location. They're getting pretty big, so you should be able to find Troegs beer where you live.
All right, so let's give it a look here. Oh, wow, look at that. It's
Yeah,
almost a ruby color.
Nice ruby color.
Super
Not,
clear.
yeah, not completely transparent, but definitely has good clarity there. Not too much head on this beer either.
Got
The smell,
Well,
I
less
mean,
than
it's
2
very
fingers worth.
malty. I mean, that is
Oh, yeah, wow.
extremely malty beer. Yeah, you
it just smells pretty thick.
It does. It definitely does.
Smells like liquid
But
bread.
I'm not getting an alcohol smell, which is good because you think about this beer, 8.2%, you'd expect
Yeah,
an
definitely.
alcohol smell there, but no, it's much more malty. So
Right,
let's
well-
go ahead and give it a sip. Wow. It's like almost like a caramely, kind of a toasted malt taste as well.
Yeah.
You can definitely taste the cereal grains in there.
Feels pretty carbonated too. Like when it hits your tongue, you feel the carbonation bubbles just hit at your tongue right there.
Yeah, and it's interesting because there's not that much of a head on this beer, but the mouthfeel, you definitely get the carbonation.
A little tingly.
And that could also be coming from the sweetness of the cereal grains that are in here.
Maybe.
They're definitely adding to that. So obviously the yeast hadn't used up all the potential for the alcohol, so this could probably be even a bigger beer. Now, one thing that I liked about Troegs when I went to visit them is they do a scratch beer series, which allows them to experiment with different styles of beer, which could eventually end up being their next Troegenator. So I had one of their first scratch beers, which was the number 4, which was a barley wine called Flying Mouflon. Now, they never actually turned it into a real beer, but if you ever get a chance to go out to their brewery, definitely check out their scratch beer series because it's not something you can get in stores. You can only get it at the brewery itself.
So is that something that they're experimenting with?
Yeah, they do all kinds of different experiments. I think they're up to over 100 experiments now.
Wow.
So it's something that they're always trying. And the new location in Hershey, it's got over 200 seats in their tasting room.
Wow.
So it's really gotten big, but definitely a place to check out. But enough about the brewery. Let's talk about this beer.
So it's a Doublebock or a Doppelbock. A little bit of history about it. So the first Doppelbock was brewed in Munich by a group of Paulaner monks, and
Monks are always good with beer. Why is that? I mean, I
I
guess
think-
they've got nothing else to do.
Well, during their fasting seasons, when they weren't allowed to eat food, they would turn to beer because it was brewed with malts, and it was basically something to let them sustain themselves through their fasting.
Huh.
So I think they called it liquid bread.
I can understand that. Smelling it, tasting it, it definitely is like a hearty bread.
So the Paulaner monks, when they first brewed the Doppelbock, they called their brew the Salvator, which means savior. So a lot of modern breweries, when they make their Doppelbocks or Doublebocks, they add the ATOR on the end of their beer names. So hence we have the Troegenator.
Troegenator, how about that?
Which calls back to the original Doppelbock.
I like that. That's
I think
really
pretty
cool.
interesting.
Yeah. All right, well, we're going to take a break, finish up these beers, make our ratings, and when we come back, we'll let you know what we think. All right, we're back. We actually didn't end up finishing the beer yet. We just kind of set it off to the side because it is such a
Quite
heavy,
potent.
strong beer. But we'll be enjoying it after we finish up with this video. Now, for me, with the look of this beer,
I think it looked great.
I think it looked great too. I gave it a 4 just because it had that nice ruby color.
Yeah, absolutely.
Slightly transparent, not completely transparent, but you know.
Yeah, great color, slight carbonation, a little bit of head to it, but
Yeah.
it just looked delicious.
Yeah. Now, smell, I also gave it a 4 because I really like the malty, caramelly smell of the beer. Like you could really smell the sweetness of it, and it wasn't overwhelmed by any alcohol smell.
Yeah, I agree. So for me, I'd rate the smell a 3. It was a little too sweet smelling for me, but I agree that you can't smell the alcohol in it, even though it is a really strong beer.
Yeah, you would expect it with 8.2%.
You you can't sense any kind of boozy taste to it.
Right. Now for taste, I'm giving that a 4.5. I really like the taste of this beer. It's got a real toasty, malty, caramelly taste to it. Sweet, very sweet.
I think for me, I'm a little less than that, maybe 3.5. It's a little too sweet. Trying to finish that whole glass, it was
it's one you want to share
tough. Yeah,
for sure.
For sure, I agree with that.
And then for the mouthfeel, I'm rating that a little bit lower, about a 3, just because of the sweetness. It feels sticky.
Yeah.
It definitely coats the throat, and not maybe such a good way that you'd want.
I agree. I also gave it a 3. You kind of get that tacky feeling in the back of your throat after drinking a few sips of it.
Right. You maybe want to have a glass of water on hand. Now, as far as overall goes, this is one of my favorite beers, so of course I'm going to rate it a 4.5. I mean, it's definitely up there for me. It's one of my go-to beers for Troegs.
For me, I'll give it a 3.5. Like I said, it's just slightly too sweet after all. But being an 8.2 ABV, I think it's hard to tell. So it kind of sneaks up on you for sure.
Yeah, so be careful if you do drink this beer yourself. And that's all we've got for you this week. Make sure to check out our other videos here on YouTube, as well as our website, which is danandmike.com, and follow us on Twitter at danmikebeer, and we'll see you next time.
All right, see ya.